What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. It feels different, doesn't it? You want to know why? I think it's because it's officially football season. College football season has already kicked off. Of course, we got week 0 overreactions. I'm going to be giving you guys my thoughts on USC's win over San Jose State, Notre Dame clobbering Navy. And then, the preseason just wrapped up, which is a great sign if you're an NFL fan, because that means that the NFL season is just around the corner. But I got to give you guys my final preseason takeaways to the performances of CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and Anthony Richardson. Both or all three of those guys were the first 3 quarterbacks taken in this past year's draft, and they have been announced the starting quarterbacks for their respective teams. Let's fix the camera real quick. Then Trey Lance, he got traded to the damn Dallas Cowboys, bro. Like, out of all the teams in the world Trey Lance could have got traded to, the Dallas Cowboys, dog? Who saw that coming? Got a lot of interesting things to say about that. And then Kyler Murray, he might not play this year at all, according to some rumors floating around. And I'm going to give you guys my Florida versus Utah preview and prediction. That game is going to be played this Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. So I want to just go ahead and get that one out the way before we let it linger a little bit. Before we begin, if you haven't already, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just available on YouTube. We're not just the YouTube channel. We are a podcast. And you can find every single audio version of this podcast on every podcasting platform. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. And if you enjoy the content and you want to support the channel, leave us with a 5-star review, man. If you got a cell phone or you got a device that allows you to listen to podcasts, you need to go on that thing, type in the JT Sports Podcast on Apple or Spotify, and give us a 5-star review if you love the content and you want to support the channel. It's free. It costs no money to give us a 5-star review. So go ahead and give us a 5-star review. And my last announcement before we begin, a lot of you guys been asking about the Fantasy Football League. It's coming. I plan on having one up and running by Friday. My thing is just this. If you join the league, be active, bro. Don't join the league and then you automatically got to auto draft your team. If you're going to join my Fantasy Football League, I want you to be active. The last couple of fantasy leagues I started up for the channel, we had a bunch of inactive people, and I've won like the last 3 times. Like, bro, it's boring playing fantasy football with robots. So if you're going to join my fantasy league, all I ask is that you please be active. Don't be inactive. You might as well not join. Here we go, man. USC beat San Jose State 56-28, and man, there's a lot of good and a lot of concern to take away from this game. First of all, let's get the cat out of the bag. There's a lot of people coming for Alex Grinch. A lot of people are not happy with the way USC's defense performed against San Jose State. That quarterback that San Jose State had out there, Cordero, that boy looked like something special Saturday afternoon against this Trojans defense. Now, I'm going to be real with you. I'm not that upset about the performance that we've seen out of this defense this past week. I know Alex Grinch is somebody that a lot of people really don't like if you're a USC fan, but this defense wasn't really that bad. It's not like San Jose State was moving the ball up and down at will, and this defense couldn't do anything to stop it. Like, bro, they really gave up 21 points until they allowed like a touchdown during the middle portion of the 4th quarter where they had the backups in. There's only so much you can take away from week 0 of the college football season. Like, I know 28 points on the final scoreboard doesn't look good, especially where you got a lot of talent on that team from the transfer portal. You got guys like Alexander Bear, or I forgot how you pronounce his name. I think his name is Bear, and he transferred from Georgia. And I mean, like, he was supposed to have a really big impact on this defense, and he made a couple of big plays. He had a couple of big stops, but for the most part, some of those transfer portal additions, you just would have liked to see more of an impact from those guys. Even though I do feel like the pass rush looked pretty good at certain moments throughout the game, but I don't think this defense really performed that bad. Of course, you don't want that quarterback to be playing as well as what he did, and he is one of the better quarterbacks in the G5. He has a lot of experience, and he was really good last year for San Jose State. And if they're struggling against him, imagine what's going to happen when they go against Cam Rising, Shedeur Sanders, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, or any of the other top quarterbacks in this conference, and this defense still can't get it together. You see, my biggest concerns with this defense is the communication on the back end of the secondary. There were a couple of touchdowns where the communication was severely lacking in my eyes, especially that touchdown that San Jose State got before halftime. Like, how does that even happen? How do you even allow a touchdown to be thrown that far on that end of the field? With that amount of time left, you should already know to have everybody kind of playing backwards, not allowing that big play to happen. I don't even get how you can have miscommunication in that kind of situation, but whatever happened. But miscommunication can be coached up. It can be fixed. USC doesn't need to have a top 10 defense to be a championship caliber program this year. They got Caleb Williams, they got Lincoln Riley, and they got a lot of great players on this offense that there's not too many teams that are going to be able to shut down this offense, especially with Caleb Williams when he's healthy at the helm at QB. Against a Kirby Smart coach defense, Caleb Williams still will be able to have a great game. The reason for that is because when you have an elite quarterback and a transcendent level of talent like Caleb Williams, all you really need is for your defense to get a couple of stops here and there and let Caleb Williams do the rest of the work. Of course, you want to have elite offense and the elite defense, but you don't need to have elite defense to be able to win games when you have an offense that's this potent. I think that too many people are kind of overreacting a little bit. They acting like San Jose State was just moving the ball up and down at will. I mean, they gave up a touchdown in the fourth quarter with the jabronis in. You really going to hold that against Alex Grinch's garbage time? Like, you got guys trying to get experience. Now, this offense, like I just said, it's good enough that you don't need this defense to be elite. I mean, Caleb Williams, that boy is the truth. I was trying to tell my homeboy at first wasn't really sold on him, but I was like, no, we're going to watch a lot of Caleb Williams film until you get the picture why people are calling this dude the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. Did you see the damn play where he dropped the snap, picked the shit up, and still threw a damn touchdown? Like, do you know how insanely gifted you got to be to pull something like that off? My bad, y'all, but that play was crazy. He dropped the snap, picked it up, and threw a touchdown. Majority of quarterbacks in this world, when something like that happens, they got to fall on the football. Caleb Williams is just a different animal at the quarterback position, man. This dude was making it look effortless back there. And we got to talk about this young gun that they got at receiver, Zachariah Branch. I don't know about you, but this dude reminds me a lot of Anthony Thomas. I get the Tyreek Hill comparisons, but he's so fluid in the open field, and he has such great vision to be a wide receiver that he just gives me a lot of Anthony Thomas vibes. You see, with a guy like Zachariah Branch, yeah, he has a lot of speed, but is he shifty in the open field? There are some guys that just have straight line speed. There are guys that run 4.45 straight line, but when they got guys chasing after them and they got to change directions and show their agility, they don't really have it like that. This dude has great agility, great acceleration, and great vision to be a wide receiver. He's going to be a big player for USC this year. When you got a quarterback like Caleb Williams and you got a wide receiver that has this kind of game-changing speed, like they're trying to say Zachariah Branch may be the fastest wide receiver that ever played a game at football. They saying that this dude ran like 23 or 24 miles per hour at one point in the game, and that's faster than anything Tyreek Hill has ever clocked in. Zachariah Branch, for him to be this dominant as a true freshman is fucking ridiculous. It's scary. And when you got this kind of game-changing speed on the offense, it can bust games wide open. You saw that big 96-yard touchdown return he had. Like, him and Caleb Williams, low-key, were a big reason why USC's offense looked unstoppable in this game. And their running backs, they look really good. Austin Jones had a big run. He had 2 touchdowns on the day. He was averaging 9 yards per attempt. And then you got Marshawn Lloyd. Now, the main reason why I wanted to talk about the running backs is because I followed Marshawn Lloyd a lot when he was coming out of high school and when he went to South Carolina. And when he went to South Carolina, he dealt with a major injury that sidelined him for the majority of his early year that he was there. And then when he came back last year, he just wasn't really the same player that he was. And this game, we started to see a little bit of the old Marshawn Lloyd pre-injury. Now, he's not a burner. He's not a dude that's going to burn the defense downfield. He's not the most agile guy, but I think he has really good vision. And he's a freight train with the ball. Like, every time he runs the football, it's some contact happening. It's a lot of chaos happening when he runs with the football. Keep your eyes on Marshawn Lloyd. But overall, USC, I think that there's a lot of positive to take away from this game. I think that a lot of people are kind of overreacting to the defensive performance. Like, bro, they gave up 21 points, and then they gave up a touchdown with the backups in. Like, bro, y'all really going to hang that over Alex Grinch's head? Like, there are plenty of other schools that probably are going to have some performances where their defense probably gives up a good amount of points. I mean, it's week 0. When you're this early into the college football season, some things take a while to figure out. I'm not going to sit back and say that USC's defense didn't get better at all, because this defense, I mean, last year, they looked a lot worse than what I saw against San Jose State. But give me your comments on USC's win over San Jose State down in the comment section down below. I had some homies at school that are really hard-headed, because they came up to me and they asked, hey, JT, do you like Notre Dame to cover the spread against Navy? I told them, hell yeah. And they was like, well, we don't. You know, Navy almost beat Notre Dame the last time they played, and Notre Dame, they're not that great. And I said, okay, y'all sleeping on Sam Hartman, and they didn't even really know who Sam Hartman was, and they lost some money. And I gladly told them, once this game was over, I told you so. You should have listened. And for you people that are down in Notre Dame, you better start taking this team really serious, okay? Because they got a quarterback now. That's the biggest problem that has held this program back for winning a championship is quarterback play. They've always had solid quarterbacks. They never had great transcendent quarterback play. Sam Hartman, he's not Caleb Williams, but this dude is a top 10 quarterback in college football, and he's trying to make it to the NFL. And him transferring from Wake Forest to Notre Dame was really big for him, because now we get to see what he can do in a pro-style offense. And he looks really freaking fantastic. He threw 4 touchdowns, no picks, and he just looked flawless back there. And even though this is Navy, a team that probably won't be that good this year, you know, Notre Dame hasn't really had a quarterback performance this dominant in the game that I can recall in a while. I mean, Ian Book was solid, but I mean, you never really had a quarterback that threw 4 touchdowns in the season opener for Notre Dame. Sam Hartman is the real deal. And I know this is just a week 0 game. People are going to say you overreacting. Fam, there are certain quarterbacks in college football that when you can see them being productive at a certain place for a long period of time, it doesn't really matter where they go. Like, Sam Hartman could have went anywhere. He could have went to Alabama, still been good. You feel me? He could have went to Clemson, still been good. It's like, when you're a good quarterback, it doesn't matter where you go. You're going to be a good quarterback regardless. Sam Hartman is a really good college football quarterback. And I really like how well he stood inside the pocket and delivered the football in this game, especially under pressure. There were certain moments in this game where he was showing way more athleticism than what I initially thought he had. He made one guy miss, stepped up, found the guy for a touchdown. Like, Sam Hartman is the real deal. And now that Notre Dame has a legitimate quarterback, there's not a single team that they can't beat. They can beat Ohio State. Okay, they can beat Clemson. They can beat USC. We just seen USC's defense, and many people aren't thrilled with what we saw. And you mean to tell me that you don't think Sam Hartman and this Notre Dame offense with these receivers can't hang 40 on that USC defense? Jaden Thomas, Jalen Greathouse, they were really fantastic in this game. And the knock on Notre Dame for years has been the lack of talent they supposedly have not had at the wired out position. Now, even though they're not wide receiver U like at LSU or Alabama, they are good for putting a wide receiver or two into the league. They got Miles Boykin, Chase Claypool, Will Fuller. Like, there are guys who have been some solid productive receivers in the NFL that have come from Notre Dame. And I think that Jaden Thomas is most likely going to be that next Notre Dame wideout that makes it to the National Football League. Really good frame, good athleticism, and his route running has tremendously improved from last season. So I think that he's going to be a big time player on this Fighting Irish offense this year. I think that he potentially could put up a 1,000-yard season, maybe have around 50, 60 receptions, and he can be one of the better wide receivers in college football this year. Now, that running back that they add, Aldrick Estime, my bad. I don't really know how to pronounce it that well, but he was snapping. 16 carries. He was averaging 6 yards per attempt. This dude was literally averaging a first down every 2 carries. Do you know how impressive that is? And this dude is a freight train. Really good acceleration, really good at breaking tackles in the open field. He can run through you. He can also give you a couple of moves or two. This dude runs with a lot of juice. Now, this defense held Navy to 169 total yards of offense, which I know a lot of people aren't going to give Notre Dame a lot of credit for how their defense played in this game, because there's going to be people that say, oh, well, they had all off season to prepare for Navy. Okay, cool, but I mean, you want to see your defense come out and dominate against an inferior opponent. And that's what Notre Dame's defense did in this game. And this defense, they got a lot of athleticism on their defensive line. Their defensive line is probably top 5, top 10 this season. There's a lot of athletic monsters that they have. They got a lot of NFL bodies on that defensive line. Their secondary isn't too shabby neither. This is one of the better Notre Dame teams that we've seen in a very long time. And the only reason why I'm not going to jump the gun and try to say they're a national championship contender is because they do have Marcus Freeman in his second year as a head coach. And I do think that, you know, for some coaches, you get a Sonny Dykes that'll just break the mold. But for most head coaches, it takes a while to, you know, get into that national championship conversation. But the way Notre Dame does look, it looks like they are going to be a good enough team where they could pull off a win against Ohio State or Clemson. Hell, they smashed Clemson last year. They beat the shit out of Clemson. So, I mean, Notre Dame, now that they got a quarterback, I feel like this legitimizes them. Honestly, like, you can't say Notre Dame's overrated anymore. They got a legit quarterback back there, and they've always had talent. They got the best offensive line in college football, or one of the best in college football, depending on who you ask. So Notre Dame, man, y'all better start taking the Irish really serious, bro. Because y'all keep on betting against Notre Dame and y'all gonna be SOL when they end up making you lose money. You're gonna be looking foolish, man. You gotta stop judging teams based on narratives. You gotta judge teams based on what you actually see with your two eyeballs and not what you saw last year. Last year is last year. Who gives a flying F about what the hell has happened to Notre Dame in the playoffs, bro? Let's talk about 2023. They got Sam motherfucking Hartman. Before we move on, man, I gotta take a sip of water. Man, I'm trying to battle through this damn cold I have, man. Probably got to take me another cough drop too. If you haven't already, make sure that you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Rate the JT Sports Podcast 5 stars. We're available on all podcasting platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the JT Sports Podcast. All right. The NFL preseason is officially in the books, and that means that the NFL regular season is just around the corner. But we got to put a bow on the rookie quarterback performances that we've seen throughout the preseason. And we're going to be talking about the top 3 selections from this past year's NFL draft: Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, and CJ Stroud. How did they perform overall this preseason? Now, when we look at Bryce Young, I think he was pretty solid. Okay, Carolina's offensive line got them damn near broken in half their first 2 games. In their final preseason game, they looked a lot better. They had a really good drive where Bryce Young threw his first touchdown in the preseason. But overall, when it comes to Bryce Young, I think that he's going to have a really good rookie season. But he's going to be having to carry Carolina on his flimsy, scrawny little back because they don't really have much around this dude. And if you've been listening to this podcast for the whole entire offseason, you would know that I am a huge Bryce Young believer. I feel that he is a generational talent. He has a really high football IQ. He's really methodical when it comes to getting the ball out fast, playing within rhythm. He also can extend plays. I mean, Bryce Young, he may not blow you away physically or athletically, but I promise you that by the end of this season, he's going to be at least viewed as a top 12 quarterback. He has a lot of upside. I think that a lot of people are overlooking just how good this dude is because of his size. And you got this overblown narrative that because he played for Bama, that he was carried by the talent around him. If you listen to Nick Saban, he would tell you that they were too Bryce Young dependent. And that's not me making that up. You can go listen to that shit yourself. Just look up Nick Saban's comments on Bryce Young. Like, there's a reason why they overhauled their whole entire coaching staff. Obviously, something wasn't working. They were way too dependent on Bryce Young to the point where their only losses came where he wasn't on the field. And looking at the Carolina Panthers, you got Frey Wright. You got a really good coaching staff around them. I just wonder how this offensive line is going to hold up. And is he going to be able to survive a 17-game regular season? Because he already was getting beaten to hell in the preseason. Those hits add up. Now he has 1 week to heal up and rest up. And we're going to see what he does against the Atlanta Falcons. I hope that he shreds the Atlanta Falcons, man, because I'm so tired of Atlanta Falcons fans like shitting on this man. Like, I really hope that Bryce Young really lets his nuts hang against the Atlanta Falcons. And I know I'm supposed to be a little biased. I'm supposed to keep it unbiased and keep it neutral, but I'm really tired of people like sleeping on Bryce Young. This is a fantastic quarterback. This is one of the highest graded quarterbacks that I've ever evaluated. And I think that a lot of people are going to realize week 1 why Bryce Young was taken number 1 overall. My boy CJ Stroud, man. CJ Stroud, this was a roller coaster ride of a preseason for him. All right. His first drive of the preseason against New England, it was an interception. Against Miami, he looked better. Against New Orleans, that was his best preseason performance. And that's what you want to see out of your young rookie quarterback. You want to see him getting better every single game, every single rep. CJ Stroud, I would have loved to see him in for a little bit longer than how DeMeco Ryans and their offensive coordinator allowed him to play. I mean, at most, he only got, 3-4 drives at most. I would have liked to see him play at least the whole entire full half, like how Indianapolis did with Anthony Richardson. Now, CJ Stroud, his accuracy has been on point. In the pocket, when he's had time to sit in the pocket and make throws, he's looked pretty good. What has really impressed me has been his athleticism. Now, the biggest question with him was after that Georgia game, we're wondering if he was going to be able to do that crap again. or if that just was a one-off performances, because against Georgia, we never seen CJ Stroud run like that before. Like, he was looking like Lamar out there. And we thought that maybe he just had the Holy Spirit in him for that one game, and that once he went to the NFL, that was going to evaporate. But CJ Stroud, this dude got some wiggle, and he has some serious speed. And I think that he's going to be a little bit of a focal point in their running game this year. Although you don't think of CJ Stroud as that kind of quarterback, he's one of those quarterback prospects that has a lot of underrated athleticism. You remember Josh Allen when he came out? Like, we knew Josh Allen was athletic, but I didn't think Josh Allen was going to be moving like that. I think that's going to be CJ Stroud. He has the ability to get outside the pocket and make a lot of things happen with his legs. Like, he's not one of those guys that just can pick up 3-5 yards. Like, if you give this man some space, he can get an easy 40 yards on you, and you may not even think it, because he's more of a strider. He's not one of those runners that once he gets the ball, he's immediately cutting upfield. Like, he's one of those momentum runners that gets faster as he continues to run. CJ Stroud, his decision making, it wasn't that great. I feel like it could have been better. You know, that interception that he threw in the first preseason game, trying to hit Tank Dell on that corner route, you know, really head scratching. But I think he's going to be a little up and down this year. I don't think he's going to be as much as a roller coaster that Anthony Richardson is going to be. But I do think with him having to face the Baltimore Ravens week 1, that's going to be a really tough game for him. Okay, like, you saw what New England did to him, and that was just the preseason. Now, when the regular season, they're going to be disguising all their coverages. There's going to be a lot more work that he's going to have to put in to really understand what defenses are throwing at him. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to struggle, but I do think that there's going to be some growing pains along the way. Plus, they got a pretty young wide receiving core. Even though there is talent, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, you got some vets in here like Robert Woods. But for the most part, I think that CJ Stroud, his preseason was, if I had to grade it on a A through F scale, I probably would give it like a B minus. You know, it wasn't anything that blew me away. He did have the interception. He wasn't as clean as what Bryce Young was, but he did have some really impressive moments where he was playing well within structure. And when he gets in rhythm, he's really good. Like, when CJ Stroud is clicking on all cylinders, and, you know, he has clean protection, and he gets a couple of passes where, you know, he has 3-4 in a row that get completed, and he gets hot, he's really hard to stop. And against New Orleans, we kind of saw that. So if the 49ers can do a really good job at finding ways to ease CJ Stroud into games, I think that he should end up having a pretty solid rookie season, as long as they do a good job at not asking him to have too much on his plate early on in certain matchups. It's like against the Baltimore Ravens, like, you just can't ask CJ Stroud to throw the ball like 30, 40 times. You can't ask him for his first couple of drives to throw the football so much. It's like they have an offensive coordinator that comes from that Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. So it's like they're going to put a lot of priority on running the football with Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary. So it shouldn't really be any games where CJ Stroud has to go in and he automatically has to prove himself. He automatically has to be asked to do so much. The 49ers, if they can find a way to ease him into games, try to get him in rhythm early, he could be really, really good and really hard to stop. That's the problem with CJ Stroud at times, is that he can be somewhat of a streaky player, especially late in games. But if you can get him going early, he can produce for you. The Anthony Richardson experiment, we all want to know how it's going to play out. Either you think that he's going to be successful or you think that he's going to be a bust. His preseason was what you expected. You know, he has made some improvements. He looks really comfortable in the pocket. Like, Anthony Richardson is so comfortable in the pocket is that even if you have a defensive lineman that's closing in on him, he's not immediately just going to bail out and look to run. Like, he's willing to take hits to make plays in the passing game. I don't think that his pocket presence is really that much of an issue. His pocket awareness, I think, is pretty good. Overall, his mechanics have to get better. And his mechanics were really up and down throughout the preseason. Watching him play, at times it seems like the ball kind of comes out too high when he's throwing to these receivers. It seems like they kind of got to work a little bit harder when he throws the football. The ball also comes out with a lot of velocity and power. Like, oh my goodness, man. The way he throws like a 3-yard out route, it's like, damn. Like, there was a play in their last preseason game where he threw a pass to Michael Pittman, and I think that it hit Michael Pittman's body to the point where he knocked the wind out of dude. So for Anthony Richardson, with his arm talent, he can make any throw. It's just about, is he going to be able to make the right decisions? The athleticism, I mean, it's unbelievable. This dude is 6'4", 6'5", 255 pounds, running 4.4 something. It doesn't matter if you're not that great of a passer. With this kind of athleticism, there's a way that Shane Steichen can find a way to build an offense around that. Remember Justin Fields last season? He wasn't the greatest passer. And the Bears still had some games where they had opportunities to win because Justin Fields' ability to break the game open with his legs. Anthony Richardson is 255, running 4.4. Like, you got to kind of change your defense when you go against Anthony Richardson. I mean, it doesn't really matter how many guys you put on the line when you got a guy like this with this kind of athleticism and power. He's going to break a couple of tackles. I mean, like, there's been plays during this preseason where Anthony Richardson was running a read option. The defensive end would stay and contain, and it wouldn't matter. Like, Anthony Richardson would still stiff arm him to the ground or just throw dudes down. He's like Derrick Henry playing quarterback. There's not too many teams that are going to have an answer for this shit, man. I'm trying to tell you guys. Anthony Richardson, his passing ability is to be desired. All right, there's a lot of work that he needs to do, but there are moments where he will have some flashes where he'll show you what he can be once he has everything put together with his mechanics and when his footwork and everything gets to a consistent point where he can make those routine big throws downfield look effortless. You saw that drop touchdown against the Buffalo Bills that Alex Pierce had. That was a beautifully thrown ball by Anthony Richardson. It's not like this dude is going to go out there and just be completely garbage for the whole entire season. Like, there's going to be some games where Anthony Richardson goes like 9 of 26, 86 passing yards, but has 102 rushing yards. And there's going to be some games where Anthony Richardson goes 20 of 32 passing for 300 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, and also has a touchdown or 2 on the ground, and he just looks unstoppable. That's what Anthony Richardson is going to be his rookie season. He's going to be up and down. His preseason performance was up and down. Watching him in the preseason should pretty much give you an indicator of what he's going to be this year. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back once again. You know, the last live stream ended because I guess people in my dorm building don't know how to cook that well. And they ended up setting off the fire alarm. So that's why we had the brief, abrupt ending to the previous live stream. But thankfully enough, we were already moving on to the other 3 segments. So I apologize for the inconvenience having to start up another live stream for y'all guys. Trust me, like, I wanted to be done too. But we got to talk college football, man. Got to give you guys my preview and prediction for Florida versus Utah. I'm so excited for this game. But before we get into that, we got some NFL news that we got to discuss. Trey Lance got traded to the damn Cowboys. Like, what? Who saw that one coming? Trey Lance getting traded to Dallas. We got to talk about that. And there's some rumors floating around that Kyler Murray probably won't play this year for Arizona. Before we start, if you haven't already, make sure that you check out the JT Sports Podcast. We're not just a YouTube channel. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast, man. And go ahead, give us a 5-star review. If you got a smartphone, go ahead, open that thing up, go to your podcasting platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever, and give us a 5-star review if you want to support the channel, man. So who would have thought out of all the teams Trey Lance could have got traded to, he would be getting traded to the damn Dallas Cowboys? Like, bruh, why are the Dallas Cowboys trading for Trey Lance? Do you think it's because Dak Prescott, they may not feel like he's the guy? They may have to bring in some extra motivation for Dak Prescott, because that seems to be a little bit of a narrative that people keep throwing out there. My good buddy of the show, Juice, hit me up after the trade took place, and he was like, Dak Prescott, JT, they got Trey Lance now. Dak Prescott better watch out. He better watch his back. The Dallas Cowboys are sending a message to Dak. They're saying, we're tired of your mid, Dak. We got to bring in some motivation for you. Listen, man, Dak Prescott doesn't have anything to be worried about. When this trade took place, that Jerry Jones didn't even let Mike McCarthy or Dak Prescott know? You want to know why? Because there's nothing for Dak Prescott to be threatened by. Why should Dak Prescott feel threatened by somebody who couldn't even beat out Sam Darnold to be the backup quarterback? Not trying to shit on Trey Lance, but we just got to nip this in the bud. The Dak Prescott disrespect has to chill. For you to even utter out of your mouth that he should feel worried or threatened about Trey Lance, I don't know if you're just a diehard Trey Lance truther or if you're just a true Dak Prescott hater, but there's no way in hell Dak Prescott should be threatened by Trey Lance. Why should Dak Prescott feel threatened when Jerry Jones and company are about to give Dak Prescott more money? Literally, like, they're currently right now working out another extension for Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones, he wanted Trey Lance just because he was bored and just wanted to see what they could do with him. Trey Lance isn't even the backup quarterback. It's Cooper Rush, so he basically got traded from the same situation to another same situation that he already was in. He was the third string quarterback for the 49ers, and he's the third string quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. It's the same situation. The only difference is that he has a clean slate. If Dak Prescott gets injured, guess who they're going to? Cooper Kupp. The only way Trey Lance is going to see the field for Dallas is if something catastrophic happens. Like, the only way we're going to see Trey Lance play a snap for Dallas this year is if we see some Disney movie fairy tale bullshit where Dak Prescott goes down and then Cooper Rush goes down and then Trey Lance just comes in out of nowhere and saves the day. That's the only way we're going to see Trey Lance playing this year. And it seems like a lot of people really like Trey Lance. And I was really high on Trey Lance when he was coming out. Hell, around this time last year, I thought he was going to have a breakout season. But I just realized that it wasn't a good fit with him and the 49ers. Him going to Dallas gives him a clean slate. But I doubt Dak Prescott feels any kind of way threatened by this trade taking place. Why should Dak Prescott feel threatened when he's about to be backing up the Brinks truck to his house again in a couple of months? Dak Prescott is a solid quarterback. Dak Prescott is a top 15, top 12, top 13 quarterback. And although he did lead the league in interceptions in 12 games last year, let's not act like Dak Prescott is just this turnover-prone quarterback. He normally throughout his career has been pretty efficient with taking care of the football. My guy Juicler in the chat says Jerry Jones is putting his name to this. Deep down, he thinks Trey is just as talented. Bruh, no, man. Dak Prescott is the starter. What has Trey Lance proved in the league so far that's better than Dak Prescott? He's not a more talented quarterback than Dak Prescott. He hasn't even proven anything. He hasn't even shown any flashes that he can be anywhere as good as what Dak Prescott is. This is one of those things where Jerry Jones is just bored and he's interested. This is kind of a little bit of another distraction because you got people who are going to keep trying to throw this narrative out there. If the Dallas Cowboys really wanted to send a message to Dak Prescott, they wouldn't be trying to work out another extension for him. One thing that we know about the Dallas Cowboys is that when they're ready to move on from you, they're ready to move on from you, and they have no problem with it. They were willing to move on from Amari Cooper. They were willing to move on from Ezekiel Elliott. Trey Lance right now should be worried about trying to prove himself as the third string quarterback and trying to work his way up where he can go ahead and challenge Cooper Rush. You guys ever play NCAA 14 Road to Glory? You know when you used to commit to your high school, and if you didn't start out as a starter right away, you had to work your way up in practice, and every single time you reached a certain amount of experience, you get the challenge for the position battle. Right now, Trey Lance is trying to challenge for the backup quarterback spot. I don't think that Dak Prescott should feel any kind of way about the Cowboys trading for Trey Lance. If anything, he'll probably relish the opportunity to mentor Trey Lance. Dak Prescott is one of those people that he doesn't really care about, if you're a competition or not. If you're on his team, you're a teammate of his, you're a brother of his. He could be a good mentor for a guy like Trey Lance, who right now is kind of struggling to figure it out. Especially with the injuries, man. This man's confidence is kind of struck right now. He needed a reboot. He needed a reset with the Dallas Cowboys. Albeit we didn't expect it to be the damn Dallas Cowboys. I thought he was going to Minnesota. But Dak Prescott, I don't think he should feel threatened by trading for Trey Lance, a guy who couldn't beat out Brock Purdy, couldn't beat out Sam Darnold, couldn't beat out Jimmy Garoppolo. They gave this man a handout last year. They literally gave him the keys to the starting quarterback job. They tried to push Jimmy Garoppolo out. And when they realized they made a mistake, they brought Jimmy Garoppolo back. And the 49ers are lucky enough that they were able to draft Brock Purdy, and they still have hope at a quarterback position, because missing on a guy like Trey Lance should set your franchise back years. Man, they traded up 3 picks for this fool. Trey Lance, this dude has all the potential in the world, but he has to show us. Thankfully enough, he's going to go to the Dallas Cowboys. He'll probably run scout team quarterback, and maybe Mike McCarthy will be able to figure out how to crack the code to the Trey Lance puzzle and figure out how to get all the pieces together. This dude does have a lot of upside. I know he may not have been the player that the 49ers thought he would have eventually become, but this dude still is pretty athletic. He's not Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields or anything, but he's still a pretty impressive quarterback from a physical attribute standpoint. He does have pretty good measurables. The arm talent is there. So if you can fix this guy and allow him to really develop for the next 3 to 4 years behind Dak Prescott, who knows what you may have. He may not be a future starter, but he could at least be a better option for you at backup. You see, what Trey Lance is getting in Dallas is what he was unable to get in San Francisco. Time to sit back and develop. He needs to be holding the clipboard, and he needs reps also. He needs to be holding the clipboard behind Dak Prescott so he can get acclimated with the playbook, acclimated with the system, and then in practice, working his tail off, getting developed by Mike McCarthy, and then eventually, within the next 2-3 years, he becomes a backup quarterback, and then maybe we get a situation that happened years ago with Dak Prescott and Tony Romo. Just the difference is Trey Lance ends up being the successor to Dak Prescott. But for right now, I don't think that Trey Lance gives Dak Prescott any reason to be worried. Kyler Murray, his future in Arizona looks really blurry right now. And there's a good amount of people that say that Arizona deciding to tank for Caleb Williams will be a mistake, because you already got a good quarterback in Kyler Murray, which all you got to do is let him get healthy and use that draft capital that you've ended up stacking up to build around him. But when you got a guy like Caleb Williams, he doesn't come around often. This dude is considered the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. And there's a good amount of people that right now would tell you if Caleb Williams was starting in the NFL, they probably would consider him to be a top 10 quarterback. That's how highly regarded Caleb Williams is. So when you got an opportunity to tank for a quarterback as transcendent as Caleb Williams, you do it. And plus, we don't know if Kyler Murray is going to be the same quarterback post-injury that he was pre-injury. There's rumors circulating around that the Arizona Cardinals are privately telling people that Kyler Murray is more than likely not expected to play this year per Pro Football Network. And, there really is no reason for Kyler Murray to play this year if Arizona has already decided that they're taking for Caleb Williams. What are you going to get in return for Kyler Murray? Yes, your contract looks really bad that you gave him not too long ago, and it is going to make it a little bit of a hassle to move him, but there's going to be a team that's going to give you at least a first-round pick for Kyler Murray. Are you going to get the Russell Wilson stimulus package that Seattle got when they shipped him off to Denver? Probably not. But Kyler Murray, before he went down with that injury, he was still one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and people make it seem like this dude has just been ass every single year he's been in the league. Like, outside of last season, this dude was a top 10 quarterback in most people's eyes and a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He just doesn't go from being a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback to becoming a jabroni, and within the span of 1 year, Kyler Murray gets traded to a good team. He could easily bounce back. And I think that Minnesota probably most likely is the team to watch when it comes to this situation. When is Kyler Murray going to get traded? It could be the middle portion of the season. It could be in the off season. You're not going to get more than 2 first rounders at best for Kyler Murray coming off that injury. I think you getting the first round pick for Kyler Murray and with the contract he has would be a huge win if you're Arizona. Caleb Williams is going to be playing on a rookie deal, which is going to be way cheaper than what Kyler Murray is going to be getting paid, which is going to allow you to build your roster up quicker because you're going to have more money to allocate to bringing in free agents since you're going to have that young quarterback on a rookie deal. Plus, you're going to have a really damn good young quarterback on a rookie deal also. Kyler Murray, with how his contract is looking, is kind of going to set your team back. Because the cap hit is going to be so large that it's going to be hard to really be able to rebuild how you want to rebuild with that contract lingering around if you're not really committed to Kyler Murray. And we really shouldn't be surprised about this. Because if Arizona really was committed to Kyler Murray and trying to build around him long term, why would they get rid of DeAndre Hopkins? Why would they trade Josh Jones, young offensive tackle with a lot of upside? Arizona, right now, they got a clearance sale. You remember when Kmart was going out of business and Kmart had all those big clearance posters on the front of their store saying clearance, everything has to go 50, 60% off, marked down items. That's what the Arizona Cardinals are doing right now. They're saying, hey, we don't want to be good. We want to be terrible. Everything is up for grabs. It's a fire sale, clearance, marked down items. Come get it if you want it. If they're already giving away young asses, you think they're going to have any problem getting rid of Kyler Murray? They didn't draft him. This isn't the same regime that drafted him when they had Josh Rosen. This is a new head coach and a new general manager. And if you're Jonathan Gannon, you don't want to have your job security in the hands of a quarterback that was heavily dependent on his athleticism when you don't know if that athleticism is going to return or if he's even going to be remotely the same athlete that he once was. You got a chance to go get a young gun like Caleb Williams or Drake May. You got to go do it. And Kyler Murray, if you can trade him for a first-round pick, you're going to have more first-round capital to work with to continue to build up your squad. You potentially could have 2 top 5 picks. You could take Caleb Williams, number 1, Marvin Harrison Jr. with the 2nd pick, and then maybe, you could strike gold with your 3rd first-round selection. But Kyler Murray, there's not really a reason for him to play this year. If Arizona is truly trying to tank, all he's going to do is kind of hamper your chances of being able to tank and make it even harder because he still is a really solid player. So if you're trying to tank and you got him on the field, he's not going to make that even easier. If you're Arizona, you want to be as bad as possible. Putting Kyler Murray on the field makes you a better team than what you would be if you got Joshua Dobbs out there or Clayton Tune. If there's any quarterback who should be thrown out there, it should be Clayton Tune. Throw a rookie out there. Let him show you what he got. And in the process, if he sucks, then you can just go ahead and benefit from that and get the number 1 pick. Arizona isn't trying to win. They got an opportunity to get Caleb Williams on a rookie deal, Marvin Harrison Jr., whoever else. Like, next year's draft is full of nothing but generational talent. The 2024 NFL draft may be one of the most talent-rich drafts that we've had in a very long time. Arizona should be trading away every valuable player that they have right now, including not just Kyler Murray, but Budda Baker. When is he going to get traded? You could probably get a second round for him. It doesn't make sense for Kyler Murray to play this year if Arizona isn't all in on him. If Arizona isn't all in on him, you got to make that decision be known before the season. And the reason why I say this is because you got to say, you're probably going to say, oh, JT, they got to throw him out there so he can audition himself to other teams. No, they really don't. I mean, what if Kyler Murray goes out there and he looks awful? All you're going to do is risk hurting his trade value. There's going to be a team that's going to be willing to give up a first-round selection regardless of Kyler Murray's contract. He's a really good quarterback. He is a franchise-caliber quarterback. And teams are willing to take a chance on that. Hell, like, if you're a team like the LA Rams or the Minnesota Vikings and you're not going to be bad enough to get into Caleb Williams sweepstakes, but you want to upgrade that quarterback, if you still got that first round pick, you trade that bad boy to Arizona and you come up on Kyler Murray. I'd rather go ahead and work with trying to experiment with getting Kyler Murray back to playing at a high level than trying to roll the dice and gamble on these upcoming rookie quarterbacks as promising as they may look. Not all these dudes are a guarantee. Even Caleb Williams, he could be a bust for all we know. If you're Minnesota or the Rams, or even if the Raiders want to get back in the quarterback market, Kyler Murray is a good alternative. You get a young quarterback with a lot of upside that already has a lot of productivity on his resume. Kyler Murray is a former Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. He has one down season. We act like this dude is shit. We act like he's as bad as what Baker Mayfield is, bro. Like, I kind of agree with the franchise guy with Kyler Murray quietly becoming the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. This dude has done nothing but get better every single season. Character issues and leadership issues aside, this is still one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league. And if he truly hasn't been putting his best foot forward, I want to see what he can do if he gets to an organization that actually is going to bring the best out of him and make him put that time into studying film, how good he can be. Kyler Murray should not be playing this year for the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals need to be as terrible as possible. They need to be sucking water through a garden hose. All Kyler Murray does is make it even more difficult for you to tank. He shouldn't be playing this year. I think that these rumors have a lot of legitimacy to them. Before we get into our main event, man, our Utah versus Florida preview and prediction, I gotta ask y'all to do one favor for me. Give the JT Sports Podcast a 5-star review, man. We're trying to get to 100 5-star reviews before the start of the NFL college football season, man. Like, come on, I know y'all listen to podcasts out there. If you listen to podcasts on Apple and Spotify and you haven't given the JT Sports Podcast a 5-star review, man, what are you doing? What are you doing? If you say you love us, you love the content, show the support, and give the podcast a 5-star review. It's free. It only takes 30 to 15 seconds to do. Go ahead, give us a 5-star review if you haven't already, man. Florida going on the road to Salt Lake City to take on the Utah Utes, baby. College football is back. Man, Utah, this team is coming off back-to-back Pac-12 championships. And they're coming into this game with a chip on their shoulder because they're hearing all the noise that all the outsiders are saying about them. Utah's a solid team, but Florida's the more talented team. And with Florida, you know, they got a lot to prove also. And they probably got way more to prove in this game than what Utah does because Vegas has given Florida a lot of motivation for this season. Their over-under win total is 5.5. If that doesn't have Florida motivated for this game, then I don't know what will. They got Graham Mertz at quarterback, people, And if you're a Utah fan, you're probably laughing. You're saying they got Graham Mertz? Ain't that the same clown who was playing at Wisconsin under Paul Chris and was terrible? Yeah, it is. It is. And you can laugh all you want to, but don't laugh too long, because you know what they say, laugh now, cry later, because there's a chance that Graham Mertz may surprise you. And if you're a Utah fan, you shouldn't take Graham Mertz, for granted. You shouldn't just overlook him just because he played for Wisconsin and he wasn't successful at his previous stops. Because look at the conference that you play in. You played against Bo Nix and Michael Penix and Caleb Williams, and all three of those quarterbacks came from the transfer portal. Bo Nix and Michael Penix were two of the biggest surprises in college football. Michael Penix, outside of that one season that he had with Indiana, we didn't even know who that dude was. And he goes to Washington and becomes a Heisman contender. Same thing with Bo Nix. He was mid at Auburn. And then he goes to Oregon and completely changes his career trajectory. If Bo Nix and Michael Penix can rejuvenate their careers, you don't think Graham Mertz could do that with Billy Napier? Now, you Utah fans, remember when you went to the Swamp last year and you lost that game. Now, that game, you probably feel you would have won if it wasn't for that miraculous interception that that Cam Rising threw in the red zone, which pretty much sealed the victory for Florida. But another reason why Florida won that game was because Anthony Richardson played his ass off. That week 1 game that Florida had Anthony Richardson in for, and his first ever collegiate start, was the best game of his college career, ironically. This dude looked like a superstar. He was out there playing street ball. The good thing is that if you're Utah, you don't got to worry about that kind of freak athlete at quarterback anymore. You got Graham Mertz, and he doesn't have nowhere close to the same amount of athleticism that Anthony Richardson had. But he could prove to be a better overall quarterback than Anthony Richardson, because Anthony Richardson wasn't that great as a passer in Billy Napier's offense. As a matter of fact, Billy Napier and his coaching staff kind of had to change a lot of things around with their offense to appease Anthony Richardson's skill set. Graham Mertz is a quarterback that could prove to be an upgrade from Anthony Richardson in some capacity when it comes to throwing the football. You're going to have a quarterback that should be at least better in the short intermediate passing game. He should be able to hit the layups, the easy throws. The easy throws, Anthony Richardson was really inconsistent at being able to hit. And they're the layups. Graham Mertz should at least be able to hit the layups. And then he also plays better within structure. Anthony Richardson, he wasn't all that comfortable in the pocket during his time at Florida. Graham Mertz, he's not going to have the same athleticism that Anthony Richardson has. So he's going to sit in that pocket, and he's only going to scramble out when he has to. And Florida has a pretty good offensive line. And one thing that you can say that Graham Mertz is going to have that he never had at Wisconsin is a solid supporting cast. Now, Florida doesn't have an all-star group of receivers, but they do have guys like Ricky Pearsall and Marcus Burke who should make their presence felt in this game. I think that those are their two best receivers. And their offensive line should be pretty solid despite losing a couple of guys to the league. Now, Utah, defensively, this was one of the better defenses in the Pac-12, but they were prone to giving up big plays in the passing game at times. But this run defense was absolutely outstanding. And if you are somebody who is a West Coast fan of college football, you don't keep up with the southern portion of the country, and you don't know too much about Florida, you may look at them and say, man, they got Graham Mertz, like, we like our chances. Well, I will say this. Graham Mertz isn't going to make or break Florida winning this game. What's going to make or break Florida winning this game is Utah going to be man enough to be able to slow down the monsters that Florida has at running back in Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne, because this is probably the most underrated running back duo in college football. When you ask people to list the top 5 running back rooms in the nation, you very seldom see Florida on any list, and they should be. And with how good this rushing attack is and with how this offensive line is looking, Florida should be able to come into this game and have some success against Utah on the ground. Yes, Utah does have a really good defensive line, but Florida has a really good offensive line. And their offensive line may not be as good as what it was last year, but it damn sure should be good enough to open up holes in the run game for these running backs to break through. If Utah can force Graham Mertz to say, you know what, if Graham Mertz has to win this game with his arm, you want to see that if you're Kyle Whittington. You want to say, you know what? We're not going to allow Florida to play complimentary football. We're going to force Billy Napier and company to beat us with Graham Mertz. Show us that Graham Mertz is capable of having the kind of season that Michael Penix and Bo Nix had last season. Show us that, Graham Mertz has what it takes to be a better starting quarterback for the Gators than Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson took over that game last year when they beat Utah. Graham Mertz, if the game goes down a similar road and he has to make a lot of big plays and a lot of big throws and the run game isn't really consistent for Florida, they could be in some trouble. And they're playing this game on the road, which is not really an ideal situation that you want to be in when you're trying to learn a new offense. Graham Mertz does have a lot of experience. He has played on the road in big game atmosphere before, but he hasn't been great in those games. The talent around Graham Mertz is there for him to have a great game, but he's really the biggest talking point in this matchup. Cam Rising, on the other hand, we know that he's one of the better quarterbacks in college football, although I do think that he's a tad bit overrated in a sense, because outside of his performances against USC, he kind of isn't all that great as people make him out to be. Against UCLA, he wasn't all that great. And some of USC and some of Utah's biggest games last year, Cam Rising was up and down. Even against Florida last year, his performance could have been a little bit better. Now, Utah, offensively, they're a lot similar to Florida in this sense. They got a really good group of running backs. They may not have anybody as good as Trevor or Montrell Johnson, but they got some big names in there also, and they do a really good job at developing great offensive lines. The question with Utah is going to be, how much talent do they have in the passing game when it comes to their pass catchers? Now, Devon Vele is supposed to be their number one wideout, but a lot of Utes fans, they're not really all that high on him. So this is going to be a big game for him to prove himself against a really good cornerback in Jason Marshall, who is projected to be a first-round pick in next year's draft. Now, they did lose tight end Dalton Kincaid, and you're probably asking, JT, who replaces Dalton Kincaid? I'm glad you asked. Brant Kuithe. You may not have remembered how good Brant Kuithe was last season because he had an injury that cut his season short. But prior to 2022 and 2021, him and Dalton Kincaid made up one of the best tight end duos in all of college football. And Brant Kuithe isn't really a true tight end. He's more of a slot receiver that just is playing the tight end position. This dude is a really good route runner, and he's a huge matchup nightmare for that Florida defense to have to deal with. Florida's defense was dog crap last year, and their defense has been pretty bad for the last couple of seasons. Like, y'all remember when they had Todd Grantham as their defensive coordinator? Lord, let's not even bring that up, because they got a new defensive coordinator in Austin Armstrong, and he's one of the youngest defensive coordinators in Power 5. There's a reason why Florida picked him up. And this defense was really bad in pretty much every statistical category last year. Couldn't get off the field in third down situations. They weren't good against the run. This defense should take some tremendous steps forward under Austin Armstrong, and we definitely should see that in this game. If this defense doesn't show up, and this is the same defense that we've seen out of Florida for the past couple of years, they're going to get ran out of Salt Lake, and it's going to be a one-sided affair. The defense has to be on point in this game. Utah, I don't really think they do anything special on offense. This is a team that they're pretty They're pretty direct with what they want to do. They want to run the football down your throat. Yeah, they got a quarterback in Cam Rising who's a gamer who can step up and make big plays, but they want to play smash mouth football. They want to impose their will on you. Utah is the most physical team in the Pac-12. They give me those old school Wisconsin vibes. You remember those early 2010 Wisconsin teams that were super physical, hard-nosed, and tough as hell? Didn't have fantastic quarterback play, but they had great running backs and great defense. That's Utah. That's kind of the identity that Kyle Whittington has gave this team. If you're Florida, you need Austin Armstrong to show you why he was such a big addition. And it has to be in this game. It couldn't, you can't lose this game and be like, we still got time for things to get better. This defense needs to show improvement in this matchup. Because if not, it's going to look really ugly, because Utah's offense is capable of hanging up a lot of points on you if you don't have a great defense. Now, I want to get to a big argument that I've been in with Florida fans when it comes to the talent discrepancy in this game. There were a lot of Florida fans who came at me when I said that Utah was the more talented team in this game going in. And they said that they recruit better, they rank higher in the team talent composite rankings than what Utah does. And that is true, but here's the thing. When it comes to judging a team like Utah and how talented they are, you can't always judge them by recruiting rankings and the team talent composite, because they don't show player development. You remember that year the Cincinnati Bearcats went to the college football playoffs and they were the only team in college football history to get in, being a G5 program? Yeah, they weren't top 10 or top 15 or even top 20 in team talent composite ranking. They were in the 20s or 30s, and this is the same Cincinnati team that had Desmond Ridder and Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant on, and a lot of NFL players. Recruiting rankings don't always reflect player development. Utah is one of the best programs in America when it comes to developing their players. There are a lot of guys on this team who weren't 4 or 5 stars coming out of high school. They were 2 or 3 stars that got developed by one of the best player development programs in the nation. Utah has the advantage against Florida when it comes to quarterback. And, maybe their offensive line is slightly better. And maybe their secondary. But outside of that, there's a lot of positions that you can kind of say are kind of deadlocked. It can kind of go in Florida's direction. But when you look at Florida's defense, though, they got some boys on their defensive line. This is a really talented defensive line that Florida has. Their coaching staff not only feels really confident about the talent that they have as their starters, but also the talent that they're going to have on their backup end. Well, on the backups on the bench. They got multiple guys who they can rotate in and keep guys fresh, and that's going to be important when you're playing this game on the road in an atmosphere that's really tough to handle. My guy Big 12 Utes says, go Utes. Probable starting QB is a 0-star walk-on who isn't on scholarship. And that's the last thing we got to touch on, is the whole Cam Rising thing. Now, earlier today, I saw a report that said that Cam Rising should be good to go in this game. Now, we don't know if anything's going to change from this point on, but it sounds like they're expecting Cam Rising to be able to play. Now, is he 100%? We don't really know. We'll never know the truth of that until after this game is played. But the way these reports are saying, he should be playing and good to go in this game. But if he doesn't play in this game, that's going to be a real huge advantage for Florida. But right now, Cam Rising is listed as a starter for this matchup. So I'm expecting him to play in this game. And I think that this is going to be a classic. I don't think that Utah should blow out Florida. I do think that Florida should show up to play in this game. Graham Mertz should be pretty solid. I'm looking forward to see what he does in this Billy Napier offense. I got to take Utah, though. This is a physical team. They are one of the better coached teams in all of college football. And plus, they got a really good team. Now, how far are they going to go in the Pac-12? We don't know, but with how close that game was last year, if Cam Rising doesn't throw that pass and he makes a better decision, they probably win that game. Florida, they are going to be vastly improved on defense, but I think overall, Utah should be able to close this game out. I'm going with the Utes to get the win. This is it for this episode of the JT Sports Podcast. Like I started off earlier saying, I apologize for the huge inconvenience that we had. People in my building, in my college dorm, don't know how to damn cook. Damn near done burned the building down like 4 times in the last 2 days. So our previous live stream got interrupted. But I had to come back on here and give my thoughts for the Florida and Utah game because I really want to get that out. Utah fans are really passionate about the Utes, and Florida fans are really passionate. You guys show a lot of support to the channel, and there are a lot of Florida fans that I've been seeing on social media saying how they're going to the game, so there should be a good turnout of Florida fans. But I appreciate you guys for listening to this episode. Man, I got a flu right now. My allergies been acting up really bad, so that's why you hear a little bit of slight pause in here and there, trying not to cough, to mess up the audio quality and stuff like that. I don't want you guys to have ear pods in, and then next thing you know, you hear JT coughing on the mic and shit. But if you haven't already, if you enjoyed today's episode, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We go live every day, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be previewing some more Week 1 college football matchups. You know we got to talk LSU, FSU, UNC, South Carolina. I don't know if we're going to be going heavy with the previews this year, but we'll see how they'll do Week 1. Rate the JT Sports Podcast 5 stars, man. We're not just a YouTube channel. You can find us on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, Amazon, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, you can find the JT Sports Podcast. And somebody asked me, like, you know, JT, what's your channel about? What do you cover? Man, I just talk about football. It doesn't matter if it's the NFL, college football, XFL, USFL, whatever. Like, we just love football over here. So we cover all kinds of football leagues, football content. So if you're a college football fan and you think, oh, like, this man just talks about the NFL. No, like, we talk college football too. Vice versa. We talk NFL a bunch too. So if you're just a diehard football fan, subscribe to the channel. Glad to have you guys aboard. And I will see you guys tomorrow with another episode of the JT Sports Podcast.